There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser Podcast.
Welcome to the Intentional Fundraiser Podcast. Today's guest is a force of nature, a larger-than-life woman. Today we are talking to the one and only Kishshana Palmer. Kishshana is an author, an international speaker, trainer, and coach with 20-plus years background in fundraising and marketing and talent management, who helps leaders create high-performance teams. Kishshana is CEO of Management Incorporated, an organizational development firm focused on helping everyday leaders live well and lead well. Her firm's work centers on equity and social justice and practical solutions for today's organizations. She is the founder of the Rooted Collaborative, a global community focused on growth and development for women leaders of color in the social sector. She's also the host of the podcast Management Made Easy, formerly Let's Take This Offline. She's an adjunct professor at Burrick College. Hope I pronounced that correctly. She's a CFRE, a certified fundraising executive, a board source certified governance trainer, a Gallup certified strengths coach, a Q3LC certified coach, and an AFP master trainer. That's a lot of credentials.
Oosh. I'm like, and there's more.
And there's more. So when organizations want to grow, when they want to find and retain people on their team, raise money, and more, Kishshana is the fairy godmother they have on speed dial. Her work isn't limited to just organizations, though. She also coaches high-performance leaders. I've heard her described as a daily dose of Claire Huxtable with a side of Blanche Devereaux. And if you know, you know. She is also the author of Busy is a 4-letter word, a guide to achieving more by doing less. And that is what we are here to talk about today. Kishshana, welcome to the show.
Yay! Thank you for having me, Tammy. I'm excited to be here.
You've been on my get list for a long, long time. So this is perfect. So let's just jump right in.
Let's do it.
Tell me what inspired you to write Busy is a 4-letter word and tackle this culture of busyness.
Back pain and a teenager. Okay. So on the one hand, many of us, listen, I'm a lady of a certain age, I have good skincare, Tammy. Okay. And so, we can show up on camera looking our very best because we take our time with our skincare, you see.
Yes.
But I did not feel my age. Everything hurt all the time. And it was pain that I had been ignoring for years. I was traveling extensively, raising money. I was speaking on different stages. I'm at here and there and conferences. Everywhere you looked around, you're like, oh, there's Kishshana again. And I was like literally in chronic pain. And my daughter said something to me one day. These young people, they just say stuff, Lord. And I remembered her during the pandemic. I was one of the mamas that said, oh, you're not just going to sit in this house. You are going to learn a skill, a vocation, something. Okay. So she tried everything. She tried learning to do the hair, and then it was the nails, and then it's the makeup, and then it's the DIY sewing. And we just tried so many things. And finally she landed on lashes, and she still has, she's a business now in college, doing that. So she's a certified lash technician. And I remember when I discovered that she was really good at design. I said to her, oh, well, Sanai, this is going to be an easy one for you to do. And she goes, Mommy, you don't have to monetize everything you're good at. Now, I am a multi-hyphenate entrepreneur. And so I said, what now? You don't have to what? And she was like, aren't you exhausted? And so imagine, and many of us who are parents, godparents, aunties, caregivers, we have had an experience where a young person has just snatched all of our pride right out of our throat. And for me, it just like stopped me in my tracks. I was like, wait a minute. This baby has not lived but so long on this earth. And she has looked me in my face and said, you don't have to monetize everything that you're good at. You know that, right? You can just have stuff for you. So those two things really planted the seed of what would become Busy is a 4-letter word. And I actually wrote a different book and never released it. Gave people back their money because I thought it was the most trash thing I'd ever written in my life. It probably wasn't trash, I just want you to know, Tammy, but it was not my best work. But I was writing it in airport lounges and writing it in the back of conference centers and writing it before I was going on stage. And it just was like an amalgamation of all my disjointed thoughts. In other words, it read like somebody who was very busy. And I thought to myself, I was missing get-togethers with girlfriends. I was missing out on my hobbies. I felt like I kept missing out on the very things that made me show up bright in every room. I was missing out on. And then I realized people stopped inviting me to stuff, Tammy. Now, you run all type of big organizations, so you know what it is to be on the road, to be locked in, to say, catch me when you can. But that day when it comes when your friends stop inviting you to things because they said, well, I know you're really busy. That, to me, that was a trifecta, that wake-up call. And so when I started talking to my publisher about what I was going to write, they were really fascinated with this idea that I'm always writing about wellness and well-being and what that means for real when you are busy and exhausted and you are coming into yourself, or you are at a certain age and stage in your career and your life, right? And your hormones have shifted yet again. We're not talking about this enough. And I didn't want to write a personal development book. Women typically get pigeonholed into personal development and self-help when this is a leadership problem and challenge we're facing. And so I sat down and, got busy. But it almost didn't get written, Tammy. I just want you to know it almost did not make it out of my brain.
Thank God that it did get written. I felt like you wrote it just to me.
That's so funny. My editor, when she was reading it, and this is, it's such a humbling experience to bear yourself with the written word. And I remember when I first started in fundraising, I started as a grant writer, and I could not let go of my first drafts of things because it wasn't perfect. And so there's this thing about needing to kill your darlings that you've got to be able to do. And in the writing process, let me tell you what they make you do. Kill all of it. And so it was at once cathartic, but on the other side, it was like an academic exercise. I needed to figure out how to make it practical. And finally, I said, I'm doing too much. Who do I want to talk to? I want to talk to other women like me who have either raised these babies or started late or decided that babies were not for them and they are the best auntie godmothers in the world. Yeah. Who have risen to the ranks, hook or crook, whose bodies are squeaking and crying and looking at them sideways, who are like, this cannot be it. I cannot be working this hard to get to a retirement when I am watching my older contemporaries not be able to enjoy the fruits of their very, very hard labor. Yeah. So I said, let me just talk to her. Let me roll up on the couch. And I literally wrote most of the chapters in the corner of my couch. So I am so glad that I have literally given you
Indeed.
all the good juju and the goodies from my house to yours.
Amazing. Amazing. There were so many concepts and ideas that came from the book. I want you to unpack one of them.
Sure.
This whole martyritis.
Ooh.
I come from a long line of martyrs,
Hello. That's why we go together. Listen, all my life. Okay. And so for folks who are like, martyritis, what is that? Anyone who has ever said, oh, you're not a workaholic, and we say it sort of like with a guilty. First of all, I like to work. Just like when I was in school as a little kid, I liked school. I was a shiner. I can say that now as an adult. I showed up and showed out in every class. I was class president and morning announcer and a straight A student. And I sang and all of the things. I didn't have any kind of artistic talent whatsoever except in my brain. So my instrument was my voice. And when you go into the workplace, and for those of us who are either super young boomers right now, like at the hair, right, chinny chin chin, or the top of Gen Xers, or like me, I'm hanging on by the we are having a time right now as Gen Xers. This was a time of being home by ourselves, left to our own devices. For many of us, if our mothers worked outside the home, this was the first time they were going for theirs. Okay. They were figuring themselves out. They were grown and new to the party, and we had to figure it out. And so you get rewarded for work. So then you got to be the loudest clanging bell in the room, Tammy. Okay. So you have to say, look at me. I'm Sandra D. So tired. No one can write the proposal but me. Oh, look at me. This donor will not say yes to anyone. So yes, I will get up at 5 a.m. and get to this 7 a.m. meeting knowing that drop off doesn't even start until 7:15. And I'm going to figure out how to pretzel myself. But everyone must know that if it wasn't for me, it wouldn't have gotten done. But it's the sacrifice. So you see how that martyritis works? So
yeah,
you got to be a workaholic. You can't be a martyritis. You can't have that disease if you're not actually someone who will work themselves to the ground. Okay, long after your excitement has worn off.
Above and beyond, every time, all the time.
All the time. Then you have to fuss about it. Okay? And so when I realized that many of us are really just searching for the gold star of our adulthood that we got for the gold star of our childhood, I said, oh, shoot, we got to do something about this. But Tammy, it is darn near impossible to undo that. That's some heavy lifting, okay? Because that is nature for many of us, but also nurture, and then socially reinforced. And then we went to school. And then some of us, we getting checks on top of it. Wait a minute. What is the incentive to actually do less? Who is going to be proud of us then? So that's how martyritis just shows up, just like your cousin just eats all the food out your fridge. Just you're like, you're here again? I mean, I guess. So that is what martyritis looks like for me and for many of us, particularly for those of us who are fundraisers. And in this climate right now, Tammy, and you and I have raised money through all types of up and down and left and right. And when you have your back against the wall, and for some of us, we're working in small organizations where raising money is a matter of payroll, right? That martyritis just shoots right on up.
There are faces attached to achieving that goal.
You better believe it.
Securing that gift. Please,
you better believe
donor.
It. You better believe it.
Yeah. And I know so many of our listeners, they're nodding with us too. If you have a heavy dose of martyritis in you, you can just raise your hand now in solidarity.
It's me.
And I feel like the nonprofit sector, we attract helpers and people who want to make a difference. And so I suspect we have a contagion of this martyritis.
Absolutely. And we attract so many helpers, Tammy, but we also attract folks who were not seen in other places in their life. And so part of the challenge with martyritis and part of the challenge with getting on that hamster wheel and not knowing how to get off is each of us in some way, shape, or form want to be remembered for something that has purpose. Yeah. A friend of mine, Crystal Dukan, wrote a book called Life Starts Now. And she explores this concept of what it means to just be regular, just ordinary. What? Just insignificant. Huh?
Excuse me?
My face is warm. I just said it. And I read this book. That book is so dog-eared. It's one of the books that I leave in my guest room for folks. And I have it in a little reading nook. And that couple copies in my house of her book, that thing is dog-eared. And it's not from me because mine is in my office. Okay? The idea that we could be insignificant and that there is power in that release even is something that for many of us, our minds can't even conceive it right now. And in order to be able to find your way to slowing down so that you have a shot at really sitting fully in your purpose and really sitting fully in your ordinariness and allowing the day-to-day of your regularness to be what attracts people to you.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Hindsight builds technology that helps nonprofits make a difference. It was born when 3 leading-edge nonprofit technologies, iWave, Ascend, and Nonprofit OS, came together to better support organizations with purpose-built tools designed to make fundraising easier, faster, and more effective. With a combined 40 years working with nonprofits and other fundraising organizations, we have seen the generosity landscape evolve and change in ways we never could have predicted. it's become clear that the best approach to fundraising is a personalized and meaningful one, a human approach. But that's not easy when goals are high and resources are scarce. That's where Kindsight comes in. With Kindsight, fundraisers can find and qualify potential donors with the world's largest proprietary donor database, engage with those donors quickly and effectively with AI-powered content generation, and keep everything on track with a centralized CRM built specifically for fundraising teams. Connect your story to donors who care about your cause at any scale, in real time. That's the power of Kindsight.
So that for them, they don't feel that pressure either. Ooh, that's some undoing. That's a couple of sessions on somebody's couch, okay? Shout out to all the therapists who also need some slowing down right now.
Yeah, indeed. And we will definitely share a link to that book, Life Starts Now.
Life Starts Now.
So, Kishshana, all right, we've been talking about the challenge, the problem, what the things we do to ourselves.
Yes.
In search of that meaningfulness, right? That purpose. So talk to us about some of the tools to help undo that. You know, talk about what I loved. One of the key points of the book was the 5-step Rethink Method.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of talk us through an overview of that method and how it can help me and our listeners achieve more by doing less.
So the Rethink method for me just came to me because I'm a person that one of my strengths is strategic. And what that means day to day, friends, is there's always another way. There is always another way. So for somebody who feels there's always another way, that means the answer is not no. It is not now, not yet. Okay. That's a gift when I am focused, locked in on making sure that organizations that I am committed to are resourced to be able to deliver on mission. That is a challenge when I really should just put that thing down and go sit down somewhere. So for me, rethinking was about, okay, if there's nothing new under the sun, really, let me look at all these leadership books, all of these tomes that are supposed to be our guideposts for how to do things. And every one of them talked about doing more or getting somebody else to do more or automating more. But it was never like, just stop. And so I said, I got to rethink all of this. So for me, it is before you move off to do a new thing, I need you to assess where you're at. And the beauty of this Rethink Method is that it is not magical, friends. Okay. So anybody who's like, oh Lord, she's about to give me a 12-page thesis on no, you can do it today. Assess where you are at. You can do that professionally and personally. And for those of us who are in leadership positions in our organizations, whether you are leading people or process, if you don't have your life together at the house, the probability is high that you don't have your life together at work. And you don't have to have it perfect. But if you can get a handle on how you think about things in your space that's supposed to be your safe space, then it is easier to have a handle on the place where your locus of control is actually quite smaller. So first, you got to assess where you're at. So organizationally, what do we have going on? So for organizations right now who are at the mercy of foundations that are hemming and hawing and are not making decisions, or worse, in some communities are pulling back on their funding because like, I don't do this anymore. Stop, pause, assess. You have assets. And I don't mean chairs and a computer and hardware. I mean, your programs are assets. And many of us have just gotten into the routine, Tammy, of just doing. We just getting, because we're trying to respond to the funder. We're trying to respond to the report. And we're trying to respond to now we get to pause for a second and assess. Is this really moving the needle to close the gap for the social safety net problem that we are trying to solve for? Then you get to bring folks in to this way of thinking. So you do a healthy assessment, right? Take time, stop. Then you do a healthy assessment of your assets, your people, the places, your things. Then you get to invite people in to that process. So now let's switch gears a little bit at the house. When you invite people in, let's say you have teenagers and little people in your house. Okay. Many of us had started having different young people in our homes, whether we adopted them, brought people into our care, whether you have your own natural born children or not. Are we asking these babies their opinion? Because they're very opinionated and they have lots of 90 seconds worth of information in their brains, Tammy. Are we talking to our partners about decisions we're making, or have we just so heads down because we used to be in heads down at work, then now we're heads down at home? Mm-hmm. Right? Are we looking at what we're putting in our body and going, well, if it's tough out there, let me make sure I can put the best I can into my body right now because this one vessel is all I have and it needs good fuel. One of the things that my bonus baby asked, his dad asked him was, do you think I spend enough time with you? And he said, no. Can you imagine?
That hurt.
He said, I would like to do the following activities. And they were like, I would like to color. I would like to build things outside. I would like to dig in the dirt. I would like to He had a list. Like he just been waiting for somebody to ask him.
Yeah, he'd been thinking about it. I love that.
So Tammy, think about how this affects you at work. If your child, your partner, your spouse says something like that, many of us get it. Do you know how hard I'm working? Do you know what I'm doing to provide?
For you.
For you.
Guilt.
But instead, what if I can invite you to go, where am I wasting time during my workday? Maybe I don't need to sleep in the bed that extra 20 minutes. I should get up so I can have 20 minutes for myself before I give it to somebody else. Maybe that 20 minutes in the bed really wasn't for myself. I just don't want to face the day. Maybe we just have a wind down, just like children get to have to wrap it up at school, then get ready to dismiss. Maybe we should start to try a wind down routine so that when we know it's time to shut off. So that inclusive process, particularly now there's some trigger words that folks get upset about, but we think about including the voices at the table, whether they are consulting, whether they're going to actually do the work with us, whether they actually the person who makes the decisions about the work, or we are. You can do that at home and at work, right? And then you got to know when to say no. So Tammy, when was the last time somebody invited you out for a social occasion and you sighed very deeply to yourself first before you decided if you were going to respond to that text message?
Yeah. I mean, it happened last week. I was speaking at a conference in Florida and there was this fun group going out and I'm thinking about my to-do list, my tonight list. Yeah.
Yep. So one of the things I had to think about was, do I really want to go or do I have FOMO? Truth is, high achievers like us typically have high FOMO. Okay? So when I started to be honest with myself, no, I really didn't want to go to that brunch. I don't even like those people. Y'all are fun, but nobody was checking on me when I had pneumonia for 3 weeks. I don't even know. I'm not interested. Actually, my to-do list is going to free me up so that on Saturday and Sunday, I can kick it with my friends or my family at home or myself. And then before you move off, before you make any decisions, rest again. Just a pause, just a minute to go for a walk. However you recharge, Tammy, for me, I got to be by the water. Yours might be by in the woods. Someone else just needs to put their feet in the grass, right? Somebody has to put their hand in dough. So whatever your thing is, it allows you to pause before you say, I can make that move. Do that. So rethinking really is just about slowing your brain down enough to be human because you are not an android.
You're so right. I mean, we auto-respond like so frequently. We really don't pause and assess and rethink. We just say yes because we think we need to. Or maybe we want to, but when we compare at what cost, there might be a different choice to be made.
That's right. 100%.
Yeah. Love
100%.
that.
100%.
Throughout the book, you really emphasize the importance of self-care and rest and wellness. Talk to us about that and how these elements contribute to increased productivity and success.
So when I first became a wellness coach, I was laughing when I was like, yeah, and that too. Everything in the industry to me was focused on making you feel as low about yourself as possible so somebody could sell you a supplement. And I'm sure that's not the totality of the industry. Let's be clear. There are practitioners who are really focused on your whole self. And I am one of them. And so one of the things I realized is that a lot of the things that people would see as self-care for me are just maintenance. That is what keeps me at the low hum so that I'm off the ledge of insanity. And so they're like, oh yeah, Kishshana, I went to go take care of myself. I got my nails done. I'm like, I get my nails done every 3 weeks like clockwork. That is maintenance for me. My skincare, maintenance for me. When it's off, you can tell I'm off. So then I got to dig deep into my bag of care. So care started to be, what am I putting in my brain? So what am I feeding myself, right? Care for me started to be, am I even comfortable with silence with myself? Can I listen to my creator and understand? Everybody doesn't have that same lens. And so wherever your lens is, whether it is mindfulness, whether it is spirituality, whichever religious or denomination that you practice or follow, whether it's the bees, trees, or the leaves, I really don't care. But can you spend time with, you know what it is to spend time with yourself? Some of y'all need to be on somebody's couch. That is the form of self-care, okay? Because you are driving yourself and everybody in your household, okay? They are ready for you. Y'all want an SVU episode, okay? Because of your foolishness. And then some of us are just angry. One of the things that was so clear to me and why self-care itself, making sure that I am present to myself, and was so important is because I got married young, had a kid young, got divorced young. And then I went straight from this life that I thought that I had, prayed for. And now I'm a solo mom. That was not on my bingo card, friends. And let me tell you what I didn't have time to grieve it, mourn it, be upset about it. But you know what bubbled on the inside for years, Tammy? Rage. And rage eats at your body like a raven eats at a carcass. And so self-care and just well-being in general, and I have my 5-star wellness plan that I focus on to be able to just keep it real simple, is so critical to me, is because I notice that for many of us, particularly for those of us who identify as women and queer folk, that we just show up with a nervous breakdown. Like there was no warning. No, your body was knocking. It was coming to you in a careless whisper. It was telling you stuff. You ignoring the GERD. You're ignoring the heartburn. You're ignoring the hot flashes. You're ignoring the pain in your back, your stomach, your side, your knee. So I want us to get to a place where we get to be big S selfish. Because when you are in the servant leadership business, which is what we are in order to be of service, you can't be out of service. Hello? So that is one of the things why self-care for me is so, so, so important. It is everything. And I'm not always good at it. Okay. So you got to have your accountability crew to keep you in check.
I love that. And so often we do put ourselves at the end of the list and we never really get to that end. And you're so right. I mean, sometimes we think I'll treat myself to a pedicure, but really, that really is just, as you said, maintenance.
Maintenance.
Yeah.
That's maintenance.
Yeah. You mentioned turning routines into rituals. And I'm all about the rituals. I'm all about creating traditions.
Yes.
So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So for me, everyday luxury is where I live. I don't want to have a house I'm trying to escape from. So I'm like, we're looking at your background. I'm like, ooh, that art is beautiful. I need my environment. I need the things around me, the things I smell. So for me, ritual is each morning when I get up, after I do my prayer time, etc. If I'm not going to the Pilates studio, I have Reform at home, and I know I'm fortunate to do so, friends. Okay. Then when I go have my shower in the morning, I do my affirmations in my shower. First of all, I wrote out my prayers because some days I'm like, I don't know what to say today, but not if it's not recorded. And so I play back in my voice, right? So that's, to me, routine, pray, ritual. Wrote it out. It is current. It is an I am. I say it to myself. And when I can't say it to myself, my recording can. In my shower, I have wonderful products. Okay. Some of them are from, the drugstore. Others are from, specialty stores. Doesn't matter. But I have my soap and I have my wash and I take my time. And then when I get out, my skincare only takes 10 minutes, but don't bother me for 10 minutes. Because I'm going to do my serums and my drops and I put my fan on, Tammy. And I have a really pretty fan. So ritual for me is elevating routine, making it special. So one of my girlfriends, same author, she does her coffee pour over every day. She could get a Nespresso and she could get instant coffee and she'd be like me, go to Starbucks. No, she does her simple pour over every day. And during that time, she plays a couple of music, the songs she likes. She has 2 kids. So that's her little 20 minutes before these babies are up and running everywhere. That's her me time.
I love that. It's like a pour over meditation.
Yes, that's exactly what she does. The routine is I drink coffee every morning. The ritual is I do my pour over from this fly cup that I got this one time at this boutique I had passed, and I love it. And it reminds me of that trip I took, and I spend this time before these babies start yelling.
I love that.
So how do we elevate the regular mundane to something that's special? So for those of us who love to cook, you have your special knife. And you have your certain apron that you only put on when you bake. You have your certain Dutch oven when you do your certain roast. We're already in the mix of ritual.
Yeah.
I just want us to be present to it so that we start to smile from the regular everyday things we do in life.
I love that so much. it really is about, as I'm hearing you talk, it's about living with intention. And, one of the goals my partner and I created, it wasn't even New Year's. It was like sometime last fall, because you don't have to wait till New Year's.
You do not have to wait till New Year's, friends.
And that is changing our language from, I have to do this today, to I get to do this today.
Yes.
And it makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get to, in a couple hours, I get to pick my grandkids up from school.
Yes.
And we're going to have ice cream cones before dinner.
Before dinner, you better believe it. Okay.
And they get to pick the sprinkles.
Yes. And listen, and I remember when I was a kid, and I did it for my daughter too. I do it for my bonus baby now. Breakfast for dinner was the best. I don't know what it is. You could have $2 to your name, but baby, if you could get some flour and some butter and a little milk, if you didn't have the box mix, and put together some pancakes with a little scrambled eggs, little eggs are $1 million right now, so maybe not eggs, but definitely just the joy, Tammy. Look at your face when you just said, I get to go do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And friends, if Tammy does that every single Tuesday with her grandbaby, that's the ritual.
That's the ritual.
The routine is the pickup. The ritual is the ice cream.
The ice cream and the joy of it all.
The joy of it all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be complicated, friends. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be, just doesn't have to be. You get to be. And that's something that, honestly, Tammy, writing this book, I do not have all of the answers. And I will say this time and time again, don't trust anybody who says they have all the answers. I am in the can of paint, and some days I do not know the color, friends. And so one of the things I had to do, because I believe very deeply in modeling what I say, my head was in just a headspace, a mess. We do change management at management, and we do crisis management. And let me tell you, the organizations and the companies we work right now, many, 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 many of them are in some version of crisis or another. So I'm working later. My team is working later. We love what we do. But I looked up, Timmy, and I know this happened to you before, and I was like, no, why do I have 3 suitcases open on the floor and nothing? And normally I'm a unpack it as soon as I come in the house person. I have books everywhere. Why do I have these multiple coats? Hold on. And it happened little by little by little. And I looked up and I said, what else am I not doing? Then I realized, when was the last time I've been to the Pilates studio? Wait, I didn't walk the dog. I just let her outside. And you start to run back through your daily, and you realize, it's not one area that's falling off. It's
slippery slope.
So I had to pause. So normally, Tammy, and this is where the busy is a 4-letter word really comes into play, I would have stayed up all night, every night until this thing is done. Back killing me, pain shooting in my neck. It has taken me 2 weeks to do something that used to take me 2 days, okay? And I might be finished today. I'm just saying, maybe. When it's done, it's beautiful, but I'm taking my wins where I can get them. I put on Grace and Frankie, Fingering Gates, sorry. It was one of my favorite shows on Netflix, and put that in the back and took my time between meetings and took my time. And then I decided I'm going to listen to a book. I already knew that book was going to slow me down 2 more days. It's fine, friends. It's fine. It made me, which I was so excited when we got on this today to talk. I actually have a whole shelf on my bookshelf of books my friends wrote.
How cool
I didn't
is
even
that?
realize that I had enough books that people I actually know personally published to fit a whole shelf.
Very
that would
cool.
not have happened if I was rushing to get it back together, because everything would just went into one place.
Yeah. And so there's that intentional trade-off. Okay, I haven't put away 3 suitcases worth of things yet. And I will get to that. I haven't yet done this other thing, but I am grounded in my joy. I'm feeling peace in the face of it. Used to be, speaking for myself, if that wasn't done, oh my gosh, it would send me in a tizzy, outer order, inner peace. There's a benefit to saying, not now, soon, there's time. Such great lessons.
To me, ultimately, I want to encourage us to be present to ourselves. There's a lot we can distract ourselves with right now. A lot we can worry over. A lot we don't have control over. And yet there are things that we can have control in a good way. Not the kind of control that you driving everybody crazy. I'm always thinking about it. I'm driving somebody crazy today. My child, I sent her a text this morning because she has final midterms this week and she's coming home for spring break. Tammy, listen, I might be dating myself, but my spring breaks, I either came home to work or I went to go live la vida loca with my friends, okay? I was not coming home to kick it with my parent. And so this baby decided that she wanted to go on a cruise. You are not old enough to book your own cruise, ma'am. And then I was like, well, who was going to pay for the cruise? Well, I'm going to see if mom pay for it. I was like, okay. And so I said, well, here's the cruise consultant. Here's the thing online. Link, look it up. She did all the work. And the consultant was like, the money's due today. She was like, wait, but the cruise is not till March. And she was like, yes, it was in January. The money's due today because within 120 days of sailing, you have to pay in full. She goes, but mommy, the money is due today. I said, oh, that is fascinating. Do you have the money? She was like, but I was going to buy, I am not going on a cruise. You want to go with your friends. Do you know, Tammy, that this baby said, let me get back to you. That's first of all, that's hilarious. And then she calls me back the next couple of days and says, it's fine. We're going to come home. Who is we? So the babies will be at my house for a week. And so I have a long list of things for them to do. So I will not be busy, but they with no jobs and full tuitions paid will be busy.
Amazing. So before I let you go, I mean, we've talked a lot about like how to slow down, to be intentional, to value ourselves, to replenish all the things that so powerful. And you've given us tools to do that. Talk to us about how we as leaders can apply these principles from this amazing book, Busy is a 4-letter word, to create high-performing teams without burning out our employees.
That's right. So thing one starts with that I word, intention. I do not believe that you need to burn your people to get to the outcome, period. There is no outcome that's worth it. I don't. So it has to start with a belief that actually you are invested in the care and feeding of your team. That's thing one. Your team has to action, operationalize, accelerate, and activate your mission. It does not happen on its own. So if they are not healthy, guess what? Neither is your mission, friends. So that's thing one. Thing two is you got to talk to your team. I want more leaders to be honest and transparent with their team members about where they are in this season of their life. If you are navigating being a sandwich leader, so you have parents and you have kids, you know for sure that your time is going to look a little funny sometimes, that you might miss a deadline or two because you got stuck at the doctor's office for your mama a little bit longer than you had planned, or you had to double back from a trip and somebody has to pinch hit for you. Name it. Plan for it. Put it on the calendar. When we plan our year at management, and granted my team is small, there are 6 of us. When we plan our year, we start with what is happening in life for our team this year that we know of. Then we plot in our planning times. Then we plot in anybody going on a life-changing trip, surgery, like this. Then we're like, oh, well, how many days do we actually have to work? Where I have the luxury, Tammy, for example, of one of my team members, her family reunion is like, that's the thing that they do. So that is a holiday for my team. She's a big part of that. She's not going to be here for 3 days. We just take off. We don't need this particular federal holiday because we don't care. We need this one. So as a leader, talk to your team about what is actually happening in their life right now. You don't have to get into the private details, but it is your responsibility to develop a personal, collegial relationship with your team so that you understand the humanness of them so that you can decide if things are will or skill. Episodic or they're not in the right place. That you have to be actively thinking so that they are freed up to do their work powerfully. And then the next thing I would say is make sure you are inviting time for play, because in play, and there's studies after studies after studies have shown, in play with adults, it nests innovation. And we are in a time where many, many, many organizations and organizations are going to have to be innovative. And so if you're not given space for rest and you're not given space for play, then you're not giving your team the opportunity to be able to think outside the box and figure it out, because the answer is, in fact, in the room. And then I would say last, but definitely not least, take care of yourself. Big S, selfish. And I know for some folks, they're going to be like, oh, I thought I was going to get, divergent strategy, blue ocean sky. No, friends, no. Because let me tell you what we're not returning to, Tammy, when we are stressed out, back against the wall, underwater, that. We revert back to the darkest parts of ourselves that have gotten us through the tough times. So I want us to retrain ourselves to look to that light, to simplify, to slow it down, to get it down to a tic-tac-toe. If your team can't run off the 3 priorities you have for the next 6 months, and they're looking through their email and their notebook, too many things. Take some things off.
Yeah.
So that to me is the sort of like the now cocktail that I want, mocktail, if you will, that I want leaders to be sipping on as they think about how to help their teams be high performing, move powerfully in their work. Those are the words. I'm choosing those words carefully. Be able to innovate, to be responsive and not reactive, and to enjoy their work. It is okay to enjoy your work because work is a part of your life. So it may not work for everybody, but I think for those of leaders who have tried even nice nuggets of some of the things that I teach, they have seen success.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. One last piece of advice, whether it's an actionable tip or just give our listeners your best call to action. And now for a final word from our sponsor.
Every fundraiser knows that the secret to success lies in creating authentic connections. This starts with data, but that data needs to turn into insights that inspire action, which in turn fosters generosity and long-term donor relationships. Kindsight's fundraising intelligence solution lets any nonprofit do just that at any scale, with the world's largest proprietary donor database, AI-powered content generation, an award-winning CRM built specifically for fundraising teams, and much more. Go to kindsight.io to see it in action.
From busy is a 4-letter word.
Ooh, get your 5-star wellness plan on point. Prioritize that. Physical wellness, emotional wellness and well-being, spiritual wellness and well-being, financial wellness and well-being, and community wellness and well-being. That's your 5 points of that star. You are a star. Sharpen up your 5 points.
Yeah.
Don't make it complicated. If you can't memorize it, then it is too many things. If you take a deep breath to have to do it, guess what, friends? Too many things. If you instantly got flushed and overwhelmed by what you have to do, too many things. And then of those 5 points, pick 2 that this year for the next quarter, we're going to focus on, because we want folks to take one step at a time and putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it's all we have the energy to do until we can do more. And I want you to be able to have energy to do more.
So much wisdom and truly like so much love. So much love is written into this book, just really wanting people to live their best life.
Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. All right, Kishshana, you're incredible. Thank you. At the end of each episode, I like to ask a few rapid fire, insightful questions just to add a little more value for our listeners. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. What is the best fundraising advice you've ever received?
It's just money.
Yeah, it's just money.
It's just money.
Brilliant. What book do you recommend to our audience and why?
Oh, Lord, there's so many. Besides my book, if I just wanted to be selfish.
Well, yeah, that's a given.
The book I was recommending the other day, Tammy, is controversial now, Lord. But I would say Life Starts Now is the one that we just talked about in this episode by Chanel Ducon.
All right. Awesome. What are the 3 most important traits a successful fundraiser must possess?
Strong sense of self, integrity, curiosity. You got to be nosy. You got to want to know people. You got to want to get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Kishshana, I know you speak at a lot of conferences, so this one might get you into a bit of trouble. The question is, what's your favorite conference and why?
Gosh, dang it.
Kind of like picking your favorite child.
No. One of my favorite conferences that I did was actually the Association of Nonprofit Financial Professionals. And the reason that it was one of my favorite, it was one of the first times that I did, I don't know, like 3,000 or 4,000 people at a lunch keynote. And anything at lunch with clanging plates is a lot. And the organizers warned me that, I would, in fact, hear a pin drop in the room. And don't worry, it wasn't me, it was them. And I was like, okay. And that keynote, the amount of laughter and just raucousness that was going on in the room for the hour I was there with them, to this day, I'm always like, bring me the boring folks, the people that bring me the coin collectors, the folks people don't want to talk to because they're always the best. So that one actually stands out because it was a challenge for me to enter into a space where folks are used to being pretty stoic and reserved, and they allowed themselves to, let the proverbial hair down and have a good time. And I was able to help to both bring forward inspiration, but also actionable message. So that's actually one that I think of very fondly. But I'm not going to hold you, Tammy. I don't have a favorite anymore.
That's perfect, though. Absolutely perfect. I love that you created a space for them to let their hair down, as you said. All right, last question. Knowing what you know now about fundraising, what advice would you give your younger self just getting started in the profession?
Get a sponsor. Get a sponsor. Figure it out. Talk to everyone. Use that power of personality and get somebody who is more seasoned to say, I see you and I got you. I spent a lot of time just figuring out on my own because I did not believe that folks would want to help me. And I think that would have saved me. I probably would have had other stress, but that would have saved me a lot of stress in figuring out who I wanted to be in the world as it relates to raising money.
Great advice. Really great. Kishshana, it has been a joy to talk with you today.
Too.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, as always.
My pleasure. If you want to learn more about Kishshana Palmer, and who doesn't, if you want to learn more about her company management, or get a copy of her brilliant new book, Busy is a 4-letter word, a guide to achieving more by doing less, if you want to follow her on LinkedIn, or if you want to learn more about any of the resources we've discussed today, check out the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Intentional Fundraiser podcast, and keep on transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world. See you next time.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, the executive producer and CMO and head of community at Fundraising Transformed. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit fundraisingtransformed.com to get resources mentioned during this episode and subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter.